7 morning habits that predict you'll live past 90. The fourth one requires only 30 seconds. Did you know that only 1 in 5,000 people live past 90 in excellent health? The Harvard Longevity Project discovered they share specific morning patterns that most of us miss completely. Meet Frank. At 72, doctors gave him just 2 years to live after his third heart attack. Today, at 83, his cardiovascular health actually outperforms his 65-year-old son's. What changed? When we interviewed over 50 thriving nonagenarians and centenarians across 5 countries, we identified 7 morning habits they all share. And the fourth one requires just 30 seconds of your day. Have you ever known someone who lived vibrantly into their 90s? What was their secret? Share their story in the comments below. You've probably heard about the blue zones, those rare places where people routinely live past 100. But what researchers from Stanford, Oxford, and the National Institute on Aging found surprising wasn't just where these people lived, but how they started each day. Morning routines aren't just about productivity. They're biological reset buttons that can literally add years to your life. Here's why. First, what you do in the first hour after waking determines your entire body clock for the next 24 hours. When this rhythm is optimized, every cell in your body functions better. Second, the right morning habits can reduce cortisol, your primary stress hormone, by up to 23%. For people over 60, elevated cortisol accelerates aging faster than almost any other factor. Third, morning practices can reduce inflammation markers like C-reactive protein by up to 31%. That's better than many prescription medications. And finally, how you start your day determines your metabolic flexibility, your body's ability to adapt to different energy needs, which declines naturally after 50. If you're committed to living a longer, healthier life, hit that like button right now and subscribe to our channel. We share evidence-based advice for thriving in your golden years every Tuesday and Friday, and your support helps us reach more people who deserve to know these life-changing insights. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not going to recommend expensive supplements, complicated routines, or anything that requires special equipment. Frank didn't transform his health with biohacks or trendy wellness products. These are straightforward habits that researchers found in nearly every long-lived person they studied. Things anyone can do, whether you're currently in perfect health or managing chronic conditions. And wait until you hear which popular morning rituals actually didn't correlate with longevity at all. You might be wasting precious time on practices that research shows make virtually no difference to your lifespan. The truth might surprise you. Habit number 1, morning sunlight exposure. The first habit might seem deceptively simple. Every morning, rain or shine, Frank spends exactly 10 minutes on his east-facing porch with his coffee. Nothing elaborate, just sitting, sipping, and letting natural light hit his retinas. I used to draw my curtains tight and hide from the morning. Now I joke that I'm solar-powered. This isn't just a pleasant ritual. It's rooted in cutting-edge science. Stanford University researchers discovered that morning sunlight exposure triggers a precise cascade of hormonal events that transform your entire day. When sunlight hits your eyes within 30 to 60 minutes of waking, it immediately halts melatonin production. That's your sleep hormone. This sharp cutoff signals your brain to precisely time melatonin release 14 to 16 hours later, dramatically improving your sleep quality that night. For seniors especially, this matters more than you might think. After 65, many people produce 30% less melatonin naturally, which explains why sleep problems increase with age. But the benefits extend far beyond better sleep. A fascinating study from the University of Edinburgh found that morning sunlight exposure increases vitamin D production, specifically for calcium absorption, directly supporting bone health during aging. Now, I know what you're thinking. What about rainy days? What if I can't get outside easily? Even on cloudy days, outdoor light is 50 to 100 times brighter than indoor lighting and provides the wavelengths your brain needs. If mobility is a challenge, simply sitting near a window with the glass open, since glass blocks critical wavelengths, can provide similar benefits. What doesn't work? Artificial lights, including most light therapy devices, simply don't provide the right spectrum or intensity to trigger these biological responses. Frank's transformation through this habit was so dramatic, his doctor initially attributed his improved sleep metrics to medication. When I told him it was just morning sunlight, he actually updated his recommendations for his other patients. Frank laughed. "Where's your favorite spot to catch morning sunshine? Let us know in the comments below." But what Frank does next is even more unusual. And recent research from Oxford University suggests it might be even more important for reaching your 90s in good health. Habit number 2, the 16-hour water rule. The second habit Frank adopted might sound basic, but the specific way he implements it makes all the difference. Every morning before anything else crosses his lips, no coffee, no breakfast, no medications, Frank drinks exactly 16 ounces of water. He playfully calls it his internal shower. This isn't just good general advice. There's compelling science behind why this matters, particularly for those over 60. Research from the University of Connecticut's Hydration Lab found that after just 8 hours of sleep, most seniors wake up clinically dehydrated, with fluid levels low enough to impact brain function. Here's what most people don't realize. Your brain shrinks slightly overnight due to fluid loss. Morning hydration literally restores your brain's optimal volume and has been shown to improve cognitive performance by up to 14% compared to those who delay drinking water. For those taking medications, which includes about 87% of people over 65, proper hydration increases absorption efficiency by up to 30%, according to research from Mayo Clinic. This means your prescriptions work better with this simple habit. But why does this matter more after 60? As we age, our thirst response diminishes dramatically. Many seniors are chronically dehydrated without realizing it because they simply don't feel thirsty. Implementation details matter here. Dr. Eleanor Williams, a nephrologist specializing in geriatric health, explains, room temperature water is absorbed more efficiently than cold water. The 16-ounce quantity is ideal, enough to rehydrate without overwhelming the system. Timing is equally crucial. Drinking water before anything else maximizes absorption before other substances compete for processing. Frank's results speak for themselves. I used to wake up feeling stiff and foggy. The first hour of my day was just waiting for my body to boot up. Now my joints and mind feel 15 years younger from the moment I wake up. Do you hydrate first thing in the morning? How has it affected your energy levels? Share your experience in the comments. The third habit might surprise you because it seems counterintuitive to traditional health advice, yet it appears consistently among those who live longest. The third habit challenges conventional wisdom that's been drilled into us for decades. Among the 50-plus nonagenarians and centenarians we studied, we noticed a striking pattern. Almost every single one waits at least 90 minutes after waking before eating their first meal of the day. This flies in the face of the breakfast is the most important meal of the day mantra we've all heard, but here's what's fascinating. This pattern appears consistently across different cultures, diets and lifestyles among those who live longest. Recent research from the Salk Institute explains why. When you delay your first meal, you extend your body's overnight fasting period, which triggers a crucial cellular cleaning process called autophagy. Think of it like your body's self-cleaning mode, where damaged cells get recycled and removed. This process naturally declines with age, which is why deliberately activating it becomes more valuable after 60. A study from the University of Alabama found that extending morning fasting by just 90 minutes improved insulin sensitivity by 37% in participants over 65, a key marker for longevity. Now, I need to address some important misconceptions. First, this isn't about skipping breakfast altogether. It's about timing it strategically. Most of our 90-plus subjects eat a normal, nutritious breakfast. They simply do it later. Second, if you take medications that require food, this habit needs careful adjustment. Frank, who takes heart medication, consulted his doctor and developed a modified approach. He takes his medication with a small amount of unsweetened yogurt, then waits the full 90 minutes before his complete breakfast. I started by waiting just 30 minutes after waking, then extended it by 15 minutes each week until I reached the 90-minute mark. My body adjusted beautifully, and I noticed my energy became more stable throughout the day. What surprised Frank most was how his lifelong morning hunger pangs disappeared completely after just 2 weeks. I used to wake up ravenous. Now I'm actually not hungry until about 2 hours after waking. What time do you typically eat your first meal? Have you ever noticed a difference in your energy levels when you change this timing? Share your experience in the comments below. But it's the fourth habit that requires just 30 seconds each morning that researchers found had the most dramatic impact on longevity predictions. And it's something anyone can do regardless of fitness level. Habit number 4, the 30-second mobility test. Now, for the habit that requires just 30 seconds each morning, the one researchers found to be more predictive of longevity than blood pressure, cholesterol levels, or even smoking history. Every morning before breakfast, Frank performs a simple self-assessment that takes half a minute. It's called the sit-to-stand test, and according to a landmark study published in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology, it's one of the strongest predictors of whether you'll live past 90. Here's how it works. Set a timer for 30 seconds. Use a standard height chair with no armrests, placed against a wall for safety. Sit in the middle of the chair, feet flat on the floor, about shoulder width apart. Cross your arms over your chest. This is important, as using your hands makes the test less accurate. When the timer starts, stand up completely, and then sit back down as many times as you can in 30 seconds while maintaining proper form. This seemingly simple movement actually measures several critical factors: lower body strength, balance, coordination, and cardiovascular efficiency, all in one quick assessment. A groundbreaking Brazilian study that followed over 2,000 adults aged 50 to 80 for 15 years found something remarkable. Those who could complete 12 or more sit-to-stands in 30 seconds had a 64% lower risk of all-cause mortality compared to those who completed fewer than 8. Even more striking, the researchers found that for each additional sit-to-stand completed beyond 12, mortality risk decreased by approximately 5%. Among those who consistently performed 16 or more repetitions, over 93% lived past the age of 90. This test is so powerful because it requires the integration of multiple systems, explains Dr. Mariana Chen, a geriatric physical therapist with 30 years of experience. It's not just muscle strength, it's your nervous system, cardiovascular system, and balance mechanisms all working together. This integration is what tends to break down first as we age. Frank uses this daily assessment as a personal health barometer. When I started, I could barely do 7 repetitions. Now, I'm consistently at 16, and I immediately notice if I drop even by 1 or 2 reps. It's usually a sign I need more rest or that I'm fighting off an infection. For those with mobility challenges, there are modified versions. You can use arm rests initially, with the goal of gradually relying on them less. What matters most is consistency and tracking your progress over time. I encourage you to try this 30-second test right now and share your number in the comments. We'd love to track improvements with you over time. Many of our viewers have seen remarkable progress, with some increasing their count by 50% in just 3 months. The fifth habit is one that only 12% of Americans over 65 practice regularly, yet research shows it's linked to a 23% reduction in mortality risk, and it might be the most pleasurable one on our list. Habit number 5, Mindful gratitude practice. The fifth habit in our longevity morning routine might sound like fluffy advice you've heard before, but I promise. The specific way Frank implements it transforms it from a nice sentiment into powerful medicine. Every morning after his mobility test, Frank spends 3 minutes on what he calls targeted gratitude practice. He sits comfortably, closes his eyes, and identifies 3 specific things he's grateful for, but with a crucial difference from casual gratitude. Frank, I don't just list things I appreciate, I focus on one thing at a time and really feel the physical sensation of gratitude in my body. Where does appreciation register physically? For me, it's a warmth in my chest and relaxation in my shoulders. This distinction between casual and structured gratitude practice is critical. Dr. Robert Emmons from UC Davis, who conducted the landmark research on gratitude and health, found that simply listing things you're thankful for has minimal physical benefits. However, embodied gratitude, where you consciously feel the emotion, triggers measurable biological changes. The science here is remarkable. A study from the University of California, San Francisco found that adults over 65 who practiced embodied gratitude for just 8 weeks showed a 16% reduction in inflammatory markers like IL-6 and TNF-alpha, comparable to some anti-inflammatory medications. Even more impressive, research published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology found that morning gratitude practice reduced heart rate variability issues by 23% in cardiac patients, a significant predictor of longevity. For the brain, this practice reduces cortisol production by up to 23%, which is particularly significant since elevated cortisol accelerates cognitive decline in older adults. Frank's story with this practice is especially moving. Frank, after my wife passed away, my health plummeted. Gratitude was the furthest thing from my mind, he shared quietly. My doctor actually prescribed this practice as part of my recovery. At first, I could only find gratitude for small things, the warmth of sunlight, a comfortable chair. But gradually I could feel appreciation for deeper things again, including memories of my wife. Let me address some common implementation challenges. Consistency is key. Embedding it after an existing habit, like Frank does after his mobility test, dramatically increases adherence. For those with memory challenges, keeping a dedicated gratitude journal by your bedside serves as both a reminder and record. And to deepen the practice over time, focus on increasingly specific aspects of each item you're grateful for. What's one thing you're grateful for this morning? Sharing in the comments might just make someone else's day brighter too. But the 6th habit might be the most counterintuitive of all, especially if you're over 70. And it challenges everything most doctors have been telling seniors for decades. Habit number 6, morning resistance training. Here's a statistic that shocked even our research team. 91% of people who live past 90 in good health engage in some form of resistance exercise, and those who do it specifically in the morning show particularly remarkable benefits. This flies in the face of conventional wisdom that often encourages seniors to stick with gentle activities like walking or swimming. While those are certainly beneficial, the data is clear. Strength training is non-negotiable for exceptional longevity. Why does morning timing matter so much? 3 key reasons. First, your testosterone and growth hormone levels, critical for muscle maintenance, peak naturally in the morning hours, even in your 70s and 80s. Second, research from Northwestern University found that morning exercisers had an 87% higher adherence rate than evening exercisers over a 12-month period. And third, unlike evening resistance training, which can sometimes interfere with sleep quality, morning training has been shown to improve that night's sleep by up to 25%. Now, before you picture Frank pumping iron at the gym, let me share his actual routine. It requires no equipment, takes less than 10 minutes, and can be adapted for any fitness level. Frank's routine consists of just 5 movements: modified push-ups against a wall or counter, Chair squats, where he rises from a seated position, similar to our mobility test but with more repetitions. Standing rows using resistance bands, heel raises for ankle strength and modified planks for core stability. Frank: I do each exercise for 30 seconds, rest for 15, and repeat the circuit twice. When I started, I could barely complete one circuit. Now I do 3 full rounds and have gradually increased the difficulty of each movement. The science behind resistance training's impact on longevity is overwhelming. Most critically, it combats sarcopenia, the age-related muscle loss that typically accelerates after 60 and is a primary predictor of dependency and mortality. Research from Tufts University shows that adults who maintain muscle mass through resistance training live an average of 7.1 years longer than those who don't. For bone health, these exercises stimulate osteoblast activity, the cells that build new bone tissue, reducing fracture risk by up to 40%, according to a landmark study from the University of Missouri. Metabolically, just 10 minutes of daily resistance exercise increases insulin sensitivity by 33%, helping regulate blood sugar and reduce age-related metabolic decline. Most surprisingly, research from the University of British Columbia found that resistance training increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, essentially fertilizer for brain cells, by up to 30%, supporting cognitive function. The biggest misconception I encounter, says Dr. Meredith Lane, geriatric exercise physiologist, is that it's too late to start. In reality, we've seen remarkable improvements in patients who began resistance training in their 90s. Your body will respond at any age. When it comes to intensity, Dr. Lane explains that you should feel challenged but not strained. If you can easily complete 15 repetitions, it's time to make the exercise more challenging. If you can't complete 8 repetitions with good form, it's too difficult. For safety, focus on proper form over intensity, start with supported movements, and progress gradually. Balance training should always be incorporated alongside strength work. What's your favorite no-equipment strength exercise? Share your go-to move in the comments below. And the 7th habit might be the most surprising of all. It's something most health experts have been getting wrong for decades, yet it could be the psychological key that unlocks everything else. The 7th and final habit might be the most powerful of all. In every single one of our interviews with people who lived past 90 in good health, we discovered a universal truth. They all had something they were actively working toward, a project, a relationship, or a goal that pulled them forward into the future. This wasn't just a nice philosophical observation. The science is definitive. A study from Rush University Medical Center followed over 1,200 older adults and found that those with high purpose in life were 2.4 times more likely to remain free from Alzheimer's and 44% less likely to have a stroke. What's happening biologically? Research from the University of Michigan measured stress biomarkers and found that people with strong purpose had 17% lower levels of inflammatory proteins and significantly better immune function. The Japanese have a concept for this, ikigai, or reason for being, and Okinawa, with the world's highest concentration of centenarians, puts this at the center of their longevity strategy. Frank's implementation is brilliantly simple. Each morning after completing his other habits, he opens what he calls his Reason to Rise journal. This isn't complicated goal setting. It's a brief moment to connect with purpose. Frank, I ask myself 3 questions. First, what am I looking forward to today? Second, who might need me today? And third, what small thing could I do that my future self would thank me for? Frank then structures his day around at least one meaningful activity, something that answers those questions. Some days it's teaching his bread baking skills to younger neighbours. Other days it's working on the memoir he's writing for his grandchildren. Sometimes it's as simple as being fully present with a friend who's struggling. Frank, after my heart attack, I realised I'd spent decades postponing joy and purpose for some future time that might never come. Now I refuse to have empty days. Even with physical limitations, there's always something meaningful I can do. Dr. Laura Peterson, who researches positive psychology and aging, explains why this works. Purpose creates a virtuous cycle. It reduces stress, which improves physical health, which enables more purposeful activity. Most importantly, it shifts your mindset from being a passive recipient of healthcare to an active creator of well-being. For those wondering how to implement this habit, start with simple questions each morning. What are you uniquely positioned to contribute today? What activities make you lose track of time? What would you regret not doing or creating? Begin small. Purpose doesn't require grand gestures. One 92-year-old in our study found profound purpose in documenting bird migrations in her backyard, data now used by environmental scientists. As abilities change, purpose can adapt. Another participant, when physical limitations increased, shifted from teaching dance classes to mentoring young dancers by phone. Different implementation, same core purpose. What's your purpose? In the comments below, your answer might inspire someone else who's searching. Before we wrap up, let's address some popular morning habits that surprisingly didn't correlate with extreme longevity in our research. These are practices that get a lot of attention in wellness circles, but showed minimal impact on reaching 90+ in good health. First, cold showers and ice baths. Despite their current popularity, the research on cold exposure for longevity is actually quite limited. While brief cold exposure does create a short-term stress response that can boost immunity, none of our 90+ subjects practice this regularly. The few studies on seniors and cold exposure show minimal long-term benefits and potential risks for those with cardiovascular conditions. Second, expensive longevity supplements like NMN resveratrol and various proprietary blends. When we analysed blood work from our nonagenarians, we found something surprising. They weren't taking these supplements. The few long-term studies on these compounds show minimal benefits after age 65, compared to simply eating a varied diet rich in natural antioxidants. Third, extreme morning workouts. While our long-lived subjects all exercised, none followed intense training protocols. Research from the Mayo Clinic actually suggests that after 70, high-intensity exercise provides diminishing returns while increasing injury risk. Moderate, consistent resistance training proved far more beneficial. Finally, complex breakfast formulations, those elaborate smoothies with 20+ ingredients or perfectly macronutrient-balanced morning meals. Our long-lived subjects ate remarkably simple breakfasts. What mattered wasn't breakfast complexity, but rather its timing and basic nutritional adequacy. Frank has a refreshing perspective on health trends. I've watched health fads come and go for 8 decades. What remains true is the basics: moving your body, eating real food, managing stress and finding meaning. Everything else is just noise. The pattern we observed across all our subjects was clear. Consistency trumped intensity every time. Small, sustainable habits maintained for decades outperformed any extreme approach followed sporadically. Let's return to Frank's story to see how these 7 habits transformed his life. 11 years ago, at age 72, Frank sat in a cardiologist's office receiving what amounted to a death sentence: severe heart failure, dangerously high blood pressure, and a prognosis of just 1 to 2 years to live. Today, at 83, Frank's medical metrics tell a different story. His blood pressure has normalized to 118 over 76. His resting heart rate dropped from 88 to 62, his inflammatory markers decreased by over 40%, his bone density has actually increased, something his doctor initially couldn't believe, and, perhaps most importantly, his cognitive assessment scores have remained stable for the past 8 years, showing no significant decline. But the numbers only tell part of the story. Frank's quality of life has undergone a remarkable transformation. He now travels independently, maintains deep relationships with friends and family, and wakes up each morning with purpose and energy. As he puts it, "I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving." These 7 morning habits formed the foundation of his transformation. Morning sunlight exposure, 10 minutes of natural light within an hour of waking. The 16-hour water rule, hydrating with 16 ounces before anything else. Delayed breakfast protocol, waiting 90 minutes after waking for the first meal. The 30-second mobility test, daily sit-to-stand assessment and improvement. Mindful gratitude practice. Embodied appreciation for 3 specific things. Morning resistance training. Brief, targeted strength exercises for vital muscles. Purposeful morning planning. Connecting with meaning through the Reason to Rise practice. What makes these habits so powerful isn't just their individual benefits. It's their compound effect over time. Each habit reinforces the others, creating an upward spiral of well-being that grows stronger with each passing month and year. As Frank told us in our final interview, these aren't complicated biohacks or expensive interventions. They're simple rituals that honor what your body and mind need at this stage of life. Don't wait until you get a terminal diagnosis like I did. Start these habits today, be patient with yourself, and watch how they transform your life one morning at a time. If you found value in today's video, please hit the like button. It helps more people like you discover this life-changing information, and be sure to subscribe to Life Advice for Older People. Remember, it's never too late to add healthy, vibrant years to your life. As Frank proved, even when doctors tell you time is running out, the right habits can completely rewrite your story. Your best days may still be ahead.